Well, fantastic. Thank you for having us, and it's a real pleasure to be part of EarthX. Today we're going to be focusing mostly on a project called Aguanita in South Texas. And as you saw in the opening video, Bring Baffin Back, there are a large group of stakeholders that have recognized a problem with declining water quality, non-point source pollution, that have come together and put solutions together to address this issue. And Aguanita is just one of many projects and initiatives that's part of the larger Bring Baffin Back. And it's a great pleasure to have this group here today. I'm going to, we've got landowners, we've got research institutes, we've got attorneys, we've got all these different NGOs that have come together to come up with a solution to a problem that's been recognized. And one thing that you'll notice is that I don't mention government agencies. This is not being driven by policy. It's not driven by enforcement. It is people coming together with a common goal to find a solution to an issue that's been recognized by multiple stakeholders. And so I'm going to now introduce Danna Orr, who is the landowner that Aguanita is taking place on her family's land. And Danna, what can you take us through what came up? How did Aguanita come to be? This is multiple generations of family land. You wanted to do something to give back. And so ultimately Aguanita was born. And this is obviously not the use of the land that's going to provide the highest amount of capital return. But what was the decision-making process that went into coming up with Aguanita?
Okay, so just very quickly, my grandmother was a Chapman. Chapman Ranch borders the King Ranch in Nueces County, and it was purchased from the King Ranch in the 20s. Ever since then, we have grown cotton, grain sorghum. I was gifted a wee portion of Chapman Ranch by my grandparents, and I can't quite express how deeply I take the role of land ownership. It's an honor, a privilege. I've always felt this way. And a little over 10 years ago, I thought, I'm going to carve out some of my acreage and as a thank you for being gifted land, and try to find a use for it that could serve the community. Now, that was wide open. And I noticed as I was driving from Chapman Ranch to Corpus that there were more and more bicyclists cycling between Kingsville and Corpus. And I thought, wow, I wonder if they would like a break halfway between. What about a wildlife preserve where the cyclists could not only take a break, but see something beautiful? I've been nuts about animals, birds, nature all my life. So Mr. Colby Winzer at Wells Fargo, helping with Farm and Ranch, hooked me up with a conservation attorney, David Braun, outside of Austin. And that began, I wouldn't say arduous, an intense path in which we began. First person we met was the Nueces River Authority, and they talked about riparian buffers. So for quite a number of years, we met with myriad scientists, nonprofits. We toured a tract of land north of Austin that had been returned to native prairie. And then years later, and I must confess, I was a theater major. I know nothing about science or the 9 million acronyms with conservation. And one day, David Braun said, why don't we have lunch in Corpus with 2 scientists at the Harte Research Institute at A&M?
A&M Corpus Christi.
Doctors Mike Wetz and Larry McKinney. So we're sitting at the yacht club and I'm looking out at the boats and I learn, I'm embarrassed, I didn't know what Baffin Bay was, that the Harte Research Institute had been doing years of nutrient study in at least 2 of the major tributaries flowing into Baffin Bay and Baffin Bay. And that one of the guilty perpetrators was chemicals from agriculture fertilizer, and that it was causing excessive algal blooms and fish kill. And I felt stabbed with this invisible arrow of guilt, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm contributing to destroying water quality. At the same time that I'm very loyal to my farmer, whose father farmed for my family for 53 crop seasons, and I wear cotton, and I thought, okay, I have to do something about this. A wetland was mentioned, and then another path started. David Braun mentioned that the Deepwater Horizon oil spill had a bucket of money. In order to apply, we had an engineering plan done by Aqua Strategies of what a wetland would look like on the 240-acre tract that I had designated. It is the western section of my farmland. To the south is the King Ranch, and it abuts a little bit Petronilla Creek, the greatest offender going into Baffin Bay. So in order to apply for funding money, a private landowner can't do that. So I needed a nonprofit partner. David hooked me up with the fabulous Coastal Bend Bays and Estuaries. I wish Dr. Kirsten
Stanzel
was here. Stanzel, okay. So then it became more steps towards how do we get funding, and we applied for the funding, and what we got was money to do an engineering and design plan, which is
up on the screen right now.
Mm-hmm. Which is almost complete. And I just want to say, with utter gratitude, that I feel very lucky that the 240-acre tract that I chose had frontage with this offending creek, that there was a fabulous project that could be honed from this, and that while a small portion of land is not going to cure fish kill, it will make a difference. And additionally, I have been told that this project is kind of like a poster child of what a landowner with a theater degree and a love of nature can do on a small scale to make a difference. And it sort of moves me to tears, and I am determined within 3 years to walk upon a completed Aguanita de Chapman, a name I came up with because Chapman means Chapman in Spanish, and Aguanita is a combination of a very significant person that worked on the Chapman Ranch for me. So I'm in excellent hands. I have an excellent team, scientists, a brilliant man of many cloaks, a conservation attorney. So, does that kind of say it in a nutshell?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to get your perspective as the landowner that really was the impetus behind this project. And really one of the key things the key takeaways from this is that this is a fantastic case study that is that you can reproduce if you're a private landowner. Hopefully this will be the impetus behind you coming up with a project of your own, because it's having multiple stakeholders come together to come up with solutions to problems that are larger than Aguanita. It's bringing Baffin back. It's all these stakeholders coming together, and being able to replicate what Danna is doing with Aguanita is so, so important, and putting together the right team. As Danna mentioned, we've got the scientists, we've got the corporate fiduciaries, we've got council, and it's not that a project like this could succeed without all those pieces coming together and working as a team. So now I'd like to introduce Athena Frasca, who is Watershed Restoration Coordinator for Harte Research Institute at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And it's a great honor to have her here today to talk about bringing Baffin back and her, well, the role of Harte Research Institute and the larger initiative of bringing Baffin back and how Aguanita dovetails into that, and the science behind Aguanita. So Athena, we look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Eric, and thanks, Danna, for the awesome introduction and primer. From the scientific perspective, bringing Baffin back is really grounded in the idea that you can't improve the health of the bay ecosystem without addressing the surrounding watershed. Those two things are really linked. And I think you all heard about that in the video that we watched, and heard a little bit of the background about bringing Baffin back and the issues facing the bay. But this is a really iconic and special South Texas bay system. It has a lot of biodiversity, a lot of cultural value, and just economic value as well for the community in South Texas. For over a decade, the Harte Research Institute has led research that is showing that non-point sources of pollution, so kind of a lot of different things, agriculture that Danna mentioned, human sources, wildlife, runoff from streets and roads and buildings in urban areas are bringing nitrogen and phosphorus into the system in excessive amounts. So excessive nutrient pollution is really one of the primary drivers of declining water quality in Baffin Bay. And those nutrients originate from a huge variety of sources. Our research team has conducted a variety of pretty sophisticated bacterial and nutrient source tracking studies that has helped us track those sources of pollution down and just kind of narrow the lens as to what the real issues are, so we can trace back whether feral hogs are contributing a certain amount, or leaking septic systems, or agricultural runoff. All of those things can be pinpointed a little bit more closely. And again, that confirms that we really have an all of the above issue with these nutrient and bacterial drivers that are causing the bay challenges. So as you saw in the video, and as Danna mentioned, we see symptoms like harmful algal blooms, fish kills, seagrass loss, and really degradation of this really special marine ecosystem. And then that has a ripple effect throughout the whole watershed as well. So Danna mentioned Petronia Creek. That is one of the 3 main creeks that contributes freshwater to Baffin Bay. And if you've spent any time in South Texas, you know we don't get a lot of rain down there. And so that water coming in from those 3 freshwater creeks is really important to the bay, and it's important that it's bringing clean fresh water into the bay system. And Petronilla is unfortunately one of the most degraded creeks in the state of Texas, and it has just a variety of water quality challenges, which we can address through some of the projects like Aguanita that we're talking about. But what Bringing Baffin Back really focuses on is understanding the problem through science and through those years of research and data collection and source tracking studies, and then implementing practical, voluntary, and science-based solutions like Aguanita. And so, the constructed wetland that Danna has been working on for the past decade is designed to intercept and treat water coming through that creek before it reaches Baffin Bay. And so the wetland is located, Danna's property is located strategically, thankfully, right above Baffin Bay. So it's really in a location that can catch all of that stuff coming out of the basin, out of the watershed, that whole drainage area before it reaches Baffin Bay. And so it's gonna kind of be a sponge to soak up all of the nutrient pollution and bacterial pollution that's coming down through that creek. And so from a scientific standpoint, wetlands like Aguanita are really powerful because they work with natural processes to slow water down, let sediment settle in, using natural processes to uptake nutrients through native vegetation and through microbial processes that do a lot of good, not just for the water quality, but also capture carbon, provide amazing habitat for fish and wildlife and native pollinators. We had a really great conversation last night with some researchers who are focused on turtles, and they were telling us about this important role that turtles can play in the ecosystem, and that was getting us really excited about all of these co-benefits and all of these things that give us multiple returns beyond just financial returns, I think, in this amazing project. So it's really important as a standalone project. It's going to do a lot. This is a pretty large piece of land in a strategic location again, but it's also really what Danna's commitment represents to our bigger Bringing Baffin Back initiative, and this demonstration of what a private landowner can do when we harness these partnerships with scientists and with other partners, public-private, and that we can design solutions that have all of these different benefits. Adaptable, scalable. I think these are kind of exciting words that I hear thrown around when we talk about nature-based solutions a lot, but it's true. We can do this on 240 acres, or we can do this on 50 feet in a small bioswale that has a lot of the same properties. And so Bringing Baffin Back is also connecting the dots with other partners and stakeholders in the area to get more of these nature-based projects on the ground. So we have worked with a stakeholder group, the Baffin Bay stakeholder group down in South Texas, to map out kind of a blueprint of 10 or more years worth of restoration projects and goals and milestones in our watershed protection plan for Baffin Bay. And this is kind of a portfolio of solutions that will make a lasting impact in a number of different sites and scales over time. And so because we have an all of the above nutrient and bacterial pollution issue, we have to take an all of the above approach to solving it. And so some of those projects look like Danna's wetland. Hers will be the first of its kind at that scale in South Texas, and so really gonna make, I think, waves in the conservation space in that area and allow us to take people out and give a tour and show what's possible in a different landscape. But we're really excited about some smaller scale rain garden projects that we've gotten to put in place throughout the watershed at different elementary schools. So these provide kids a beautiful outdoor learning space at a small site scale. They can look out their window or walk out the door and have access to this not quite wild wetland, but a beautiful rain garden.
I love that you're educating children to.
So important, and fostering stewardship at all different ages is one of our big priorities, but really getting kids engaged and interested at that elementary school age, I think, goes a long way. And then they're involved in maintenance of the rain garden over time, and just really exciting to see those projects happening. We have a number of other opportunities and goals to repair and replace failing septic systems. It's a very rural area, and so getting those cleanup has a lot of human, day-to-day benefits, but also really important for the ecosystem and water quality. And then, wastewater treatment facilities, thinking more about human waste. Those have a lifespan, and as they age out, parts start to break, things stop functioning, and the water isn't treated as well as it used to be. And so thinking of nature-based solutions and wetlands and things particularly, we can add tertiary treatment options on. So you basically add a wetland as part of the wastewater treatment facility's function that helps supplement and clean water up through that process too. So I could go on and on. We do a lot of great work with ag producers and cotton and sorghum, and just rangeland livestock type operations in South Texas as well, and really value the stakeholder relationships we have with those folks. But again, I really want to emphasize the awesome voluntary nature of these projects, and really what Aguanita is giving us and what Danna is giving us is a proven and visible example of what's possible when you make this commitment to conservation for a broader cause. And so I hope that this gives a bit of an idea of what partnerships can do, and hopefully leads us to replicating and scaling up this successful project throughout the watershed and the rest of Texas.
Athena, thank you. Thank you. It's fascinating to see what the Harte Research Institute is doing, how you're working with the different stakeholders, how you're collecting the data and facilitating it from a scientific basis. And now I'm going to introduce Colby Winzer, who is a corporate fiduciary. He works for Wells Fargo Bank. Colby is a fascinating individual. He has worked in energy, natural resources, agriculture. I think Colby knows everybody in the state of Texas. And what's so fascinating about Colby's involvement is that he worked with Danna Banana, since the beginning, and his involvement with all these different industries has brought these stakeholders together and recognized that we have a problem, educating them on bringing Baffin back, the larger initiative, and getting them to get involved in this. And so Colby, walk us through when you first stepped into this and Danna was thinking, oh my goodness, I've got this great family land, what can I do with it that's going to be for the greater good? How did you fit into this, and how did you bring together some of these stakeholders?
Yeah, so Danna and I go back, over a decade. When I first stepped into the position that I had, she was a significant client of mine and became a really good friend. And I'm one of the things that Danna and I, when we endeavored into this and started trying to figure out what is the best thing to do, to help with this legacy that she was wanting to create, with this gift that she had been given and this gift that she wanted to give, was understanding the value. And I am very fortunate in my friends. I'll take that back to my friendship with Eric, who's moderating, which dovetails into how a lot of this came together through Braun and Gresham and David Braun. Eric and I were both on the advisory committee for the Texas Bankers Association's Energy and Real Estate Conference. We help plan that every year. And it was at that conference where I met David Braun and saw him present a demonstration on a hill country water project that he had worked on and advised on. And that stuck with me, and I've always been good about keeping those types of connections because there's that value in the network of networks. It's honestly why we're here today. Eric and I, because of that organization, have gotten to work together and do some really, really big things. One of the refrains is like, Danna points to the 240 acres and said, am I doing enough? Is this big enough to make a difference? And one of the things I've always liked to let her know and to let everybody know is that this project has been personally inspiring to me.
Oh.
And I do have access to a lot of people who have similar interests as Danna, both in this immediate area, in family and extended family members of Danna that I'm involved with who constantly ask, how's the project going, what's going on, who have thousands of acres in this same watershed. And there's no doubt in my mind that we will be participating in a meaningful way in other land positions that I've got involvement with because of this project. I get to see and talk to and sit in rooms with people who have hundreds of thousands of acres, millions of acres in some instances. And this project was the first project that focused me to understand how I could be a piece of the solution. And so when you think about how big this project really is and how many people it's touching, the industrial leaders that I sit down with, because honestly, if you want to do something big in any footprint, it requires large land positions. And as a corporate fiduciary who manages hundreds of thousands of acres like these properties on behalf of clients, that's the real impact. That's how this project should be thought of and perceived, because it is a demonstration, and it's a powerful demonstration of what one landowner who has pushed this project forward, again, for over a decade, building a team, a network of networks, friends that we've brought to the table, friends like Mr. Trammell Crow, who makes this platform available to me to bring friends and ideas and concepts to the forefront for consideration. So it's, I'm the lucky one in this. I get to have such an interesting job. Wells Fargo allows me to a wide berth to pursue these types of opportunities because of the demand and the fragmentation of relationships. And so it's really when you understand the need at a global level, at a regional level, at a local level, and you start relying on that network of networks to bring stakeholders together. Athena and I were talking backstage. She said, we've got some other resources to bring to bear, but we're not really sure how to get to the right people. I said, well, I'm fortunate in friends. I've got friends that are farming tens of thousands of acres in this immediate area. Let's go sit down and have a conversation with them. And so that's really the powerful message, that this individual project, this individual landowner, and the impact an individual person can have in this space. And so, Dan, I am so grateful for your friendship and to have been part of this project with you. It truly means a lot to me.
And not only are you a lovely, caring individual, but I think y'all should know that on his name tag, it not only says speaker, it says deal maker. And he is making many deals, and I am so grateful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Colby. It's my honor to now introduce Natalie Cavellier with Braun and Gresham. She has been assisting Danna and others with conservation planning. I probably know Natalie best for her work on conservation easements. She has been a speaker of mine at the Texas Bankers Association Real Estate and Energy Conference, talking about conservation planning. And can you talk to us about the importance of having knowledgeable counsel when you're planning a project like this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to echo what Colby said. It is an honor to get to represent landowners who really care about their land. It's why I get to do what I do, and it's why I love doing what I do. So, Danna, thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity to represent you. It's mind-boggling. So, from a counsel standpoint, I say counsel because attorney is not all I do. I don't just draft a contract. I don't just go to court. What I do is I'm an advisor. Sometimes I serve as a confidant of landowners who may have concerns about their land. They may have personal concerns, but I'm there to make sure that their concerns, their goals, their dreams for their land are hopefully met, and we do all that we can. That may involve connecting a landowner with a land trust, working with that land trust to obtain funding through government sources. So, applying to get the money for a feasibility and an engineering and design study, which may be a very long and arduous process. I mean, it can take a very long time, but when I have clients who are patient and really have these long-term goals in mind, sometimes that's what it takes. And so I end up being there for the long haul, and that doesn't just involve, the counsel standpoint. So we start from a counsel standpoint, which is David Braun, who was my mentor and who taught me that representing a landowner is just representing that landowner in all of their goals. So you come in and you're not representing government or anyone else. You're representing the landowner, not the land trust. Even though we partner with the land trusts and we think they're absolutely phenomenal, it's to help a landowner find out what they want to do with the property. So we ask questions, we go down different routes. Oftentimes we might come to a dead end on one of those routes, and we go back and we say, okay, well, what's the alternative? What's a better fit? We meet with different people, which Danna, over the years, we've gone to wetland sites, we've toured wetlands, we've looked at what different wetland designs look like. So from that standpoint, I'm not just an attorney. I also, I have a background in science, so I also bring that to bear when I'm working with clients. Sometimes clients say, I want to do a little bit of development, or I want to do some farming on my land. And we say, that's great, you have a conservation goal, maybe it's birds, maybe it's a wetland. But if you also want to do farming, let's figure out how we can make that happen too. Your family needs, some money, or you need to get compensated for all of the fees and engineering and design that you did on your own. All right, let's find a way that we can get you all of your goals met. It's not an or world, it's an and world. So sometimes that may not be possible, but we're gonna make it possible in every way that we can. So I really am here as a partner of Danna's. And that's my goal, is just to continue to be that partner and to get you what you want, which is a wetland that you can walk on in 3 years. So if anyone out there would like to pull out their checkbook and contribute to getting this project done, funded, dusted, we'll have a big party out at the wetland in 3 years. So, yeah.
I'll provide the bug repellent.
And I should say that, Danna has done some things that, have been advised, but also Danna has started those things on her own. So there is a community foundation and a donor advised fund that is out there and that, is accepting donations to make sure that the wetlands also have a perpetual nature, that they can continue running in perpetuity, continue doing the great work that we've started here, because it doesn't just end with the wetland being completed. We want these wetlands to continue working, and we want others to do the same next to a sewage treatment plant maybe in the future. We want all of this to continue. We want it to be a model. So we do have a community foundation and a donor advised fund that's been set up. And so also CBEP, or Coastal Bend Bays and Estuaries, has a great web page about this project. If you want to know more about it, you can go online and search up CBBEP, or Coastal Bend Bays and Estuaries, and go to their website and take a look at this project. If you have questions about the donor advised fund, I am very happy to talk to you all about it.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Natalie. As you can see, it takes a village to build a wetland. We have many, many stakeholders, and it's just interesting to see how all these groups come together and how this project has kind of evolved with all the different stakeholders. Now that we've heard from all of our panelists, I'd like to ask the group a question. What is the biggest challenge to getting Aguanita to come to fruition? I mean, if we want to build this in 3 years, I mean, what are our biggest hurdles at this point to getting that done?
Money.
Money.
Yeah. So we can get money over time. It's just, it takes a long time to get funds, especially when we apply for government funds, which is wonderful. And it's absolutely amazing that there is NERDA funding, that there is other restore funding out there. It's wonderful and amazing. But it doesn't move quite as quickly as private funding does. And so, if we had private funding, there's a possibility that we would be able to get this done a lot more quickly. And we still need funding to continue the wetlands in perpetuity.
So how much of the funding do you envision being private versus government grants? I mean, how much? What do you think this mix is to get a project like this built?
Long term, it's probably going to look more private funding because we're talking forever. But up front, there is a large amount of government funding that goes into a project like this, if we can get it. So, if we can get it, we love to see it. So.
Honestly, I'm an eternal optimist, and so now that we have engineering, we have design, we have feasibility, in my mind, now that we have the project and we've kind of coalesced around a concept and an idea and a science and all of those things are meshing, I feel like the money will come. And so it's, I've had conversations with private foundations, with large corporations, stakeholders in the area, and I think now, and it was a lot of work to get it to where it is because you have to follow the science, right? In order to move the needle and accomplish the goals, we had to follow the science, and the science takes time and research. So it seems like a long time to get here, but I think now that we know where we want to go, it's going to move fast. And so I'm the optimist, and I'm going to do what I can do to help make that happen because I want to be out there in the spring or the fall, not the summer. So let's set a March deadline, 3 years.
I think when you ask about that, though, we should also talk about the fatigue. I think that's probably even more than money now that I think about it. I think that's more one of the harder parts of this, which is that Danna has been incredibly patient, and it's not always that we have a landowner who is this patient. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time.
I don't think it's patience. I think it's passion.
Yeah.
I love that. That's better put.
So if we have a landowner like Danna that wanted to initiate a project similar to this, it doesn't necessarily have to be for artificial wetland creation to increase, filtration of non-point source pollution. It could be native prairie restoration. It could be any number of things that benefit Mother Earth. Where should they start? Where do they pull, if they've got this land, okay, this is my vision, where should they begin that process?
Would you start with a conservation attorney? Would you start with a scientist?
Shameless plug, but
I'm sorry.
A shameless plug, but give me a call. If I can't help you, I'll tell you where to go. If I can help you, we'll start meeting with different land trusts or with different organizations that I think you match with your goals on. We'll take a look at your property and see what does this property look like. Maybe we need to talk to a biologist. We'll call a biologist and we'll have them do a biological assessment of your property. There's just so many ways that we can go about it, and what's right for one piece of property might not be right for another.
And you do need the verification of science.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to put a plug out there for engaging with stakeholder groups and engaging with these, collaborations between scientists and researchers and community members. And so, for example, our Baffin Bay stakeholder group is able to provide a lot of different perspectives on these projects. And when there's, a new priority that comes up, or we have that 10-year time frame that lists out kind of a set of goals and blueprint for projects like Danna's, that have already been backed by the stakeholder group. And so, if someone had a property like that and was willing to work with our stakeholder group to help refine the idea, I think that's a really nice avenue to fit into a larger conservation initiative like bringing Baffin back and kind of connect all the pieces together again. And so a lot of my role as Watershed Restoration Coordinator is knowing the people in the room and connecting the dots between the needs and the interests of our stakeholders and collaborators. And I think that we can help connect with funding and all those things, but having the plan in place to begin with through our Watershed Protection Plan and through the Bringing Baffin Back initiative is a really great starting point for anyone who's interested in replicating this kind of project.
Yeah, I think when you start with the idea, and then you go into your network, right? You go into the stakeholders, you go into who has done this, who's done something that looks like this. How do I do it? Not everybody's got a situation where they have an existing relationship with advisors like me or advisors, and so that's a really good question. It's a hard question to answer, but when the individual has the passion, those solutions are going to come. They're going to figure that out. But this is a great primer on how to get there, because I think it's worked really well.
Well, fantastic. We've come to our time limit today. We don't have time to take questions, but we will be hanging out outside if anybody has any questions, wants additional information. Of course, all of us have our biographic information within the app, the EarthX app. So we look forward to hearing from you if you've got a project that you think could benefit from what we've learned with Aguanita. So thank you.
Thank you.